Hello and welcome back. We are on time, which is quite unusual for a Brazilian moderator, but I'm very glad I'm making that through. So now we're moving forward with Elina. She's talking about inspirational overload. Please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Lucas. I would like to start by saying just this. I love ideas. I love having ideas, and to me there is nothing more exciting than getting into this flow state and solving problems. I'm sure that's the case for many of you. And quite frankly, we are in great need for ideas because we have really big problems to solve. That is on a global scale, but also in our everyday work lives. So Mark Twain knew there is no truly original ideas though, because every new idea is inspired from our context. So ideas don't come out of nowhere. They come from inspiration. So there is 21 definitions of inspiration on Google. But the way I define inspiration is as follows. It is an input that may lead to newly won creativity and improved problem solving. But not every input is actually helping me to get things done. So I'm here to tell you today, it is possible getting so lost in everyday inspiration that it becomes counterproductive. So before I get into inspiration overload, what it means and why you should care about it, a disclaimer. I'm not giving this talk because I think that I'm an expert on this. Not even because I think that I'm particularly good at managing inspiration overload, but it is a topic that is very close to my heart. So I've spent some time researching, experimenting, and reflecting, and on how to better harness this amazing power of inspiration. And so today I would like to take you on the journey with me. So let's go back a few years. It was 20-year-old me. I had just got my hands dirty at a student startup. I had won a couple of competitions and I felt very accomplished, at least for a short while. Because bearing in mind, I was still a student myself, and when it really got going, I was still a recent graduate. I really had no idea about startups or about product development or UX research for that matter. But it was not long until I was looking left and right, and I felt I was surrounded by these super creative people and innovators. And I felt like every idea that I had was just not quite good enough. So I fell into this entrepreneurial slump where I felt uninspired, I felt stuck, and I was looking around and everyone seemed to have it more figured out than me. They probably didn't, but social comparison is a powerful thing. So I pulled my head out of the sand and I decided to get out there and let some of that success rub off on me. And I thought of Mark Twain, and I thought, great, if all you need to come up with ideas is getting inspiration, I'm just going to do right that. So let me tell you, I took every conference, every talk, every book, every meetup as a chance to absorb knowledge and to get my fix of inspirational inputs. You could say I became a victim of inspiration addiction. My diary was full of events that kind of sounded like how I kicked off my entrepreneurial career with worm farming, or building your mentoring network to overcome any challenge, or 10 ways to boost your effectiveness in a shared workspace. So there are a few questions that immediately pop up. Firstly, what the heck is worm farming? Well, it is a way to compost your food scraps and produce highly valuable fertilizer. It kind of turns out that worm poop is a valuable and pretty good business model. And secondly, what do any of these topics have to do with each other? So I will get to that in a minute. I also had a reading list that kept getting longer. So I started using this wonderful application called Blinkist. It kind of sums up the book's main points and gives you its content in 5 minutes time. And I was like, this is great. I will read all of these books in 5 minutes time. More power to me. All of these books that I read, it is shocking of how little I remember. But I do remember a point in time when I sat in a car with my business partner at the end of an event. It was dozens of great speakers and hours of networking later. And I was just sitting in the car, I was staring at the ceiling and thinking to myself, wow, what an amazing waste of time this was. And this is how I felt. Yeah, I know. Poor guy. So I did some research for this talk. And a quick look through the internet showed me there are actually many people who feel the same. People who feel that that all this inspirational inputs is not actually helping them to generate productive ideas. One blogger felt like she was in a creative slump, and she wrote that the thought of missing out made her feel incredibly stressed. She said, if I do not attend this talk, I will miss out an opportunity to get out of this slump. Then there is getting distracted. Getting distracted really easily by new inputs. So another person wrote, picture this. I am deep into my task at work, and then I get a notification. Oh, look at this newsletter that just arrived into my inbox. It has a catchy title. It sounds inspiring. Let's read it right away. And once you are there, this person wrote, I jump from one thing to the next, not knowing when to stop. I get sucked into this rabbit hole where one inspiring article leads to the next, and I end up mindlessly scrolling and sharing articles. And lastly, there is not reading, listening, or watching anything at all, just because you, don't know where to start. And this is a big one for me. I call it the very unacademic term inspiration paralysis. It happens when there are just too many sources to possibly know where to start. So, do any of these now sound familiar to me? Absolutely, yes. There's just so much inspiring information out there that could lead to the next best idea that it's hard to know where to begin and when to stop. And to today, working at Tutti in UX research, not much has changed in the availability of inspiration. So there's blog posts, meetups, conferences. And now with everything taking place remotely, the choice is infinite. On a daily basis, my inbox gets flooded with articles that keep me up to date, that could potentially completely transform the way we collaborate in our team, or help me come up with the next best study design. But what I learned is this. It just doesn't work like that. Flooding our brains with inspirational inputs is not going to make us more creative people automatically. It certainly did not make me one. And now we will come to see that it definitely has not improved my drawing skills either. So the author Julia Cameron said, and I quote, "Picture the stream of inspiration as radio waves. Radio waves of all sorts being broadcasted at all times. With practice, we can learn how to hear the desired frequency on request. So I really like this picture because around us there is a lot of inspiring inputs. It can either seem like a lot of noise, or by focusing on the right ones, it can help us solving problems, that particular problem. So my question is, how can we soak up inspiration with a higher chance of it actually inspiring us? Going back to my story from earlier, the first mistake I made was just letting any type of inspiration flood in. If there was a talk on building a great team, I would go there just because somebody had told me that it could help us potentially further down the line. Worm farming? Well, I thought, this dude seems to have it figured out. Let's see what we can learn from him. Even if my focus was on something completely else. Like, we wanted to merge with a coaching charity at that time, and we struggled to come up with a compelling business plan. So I was in great need for inspiration. But a lot of the inputs that I simply consumed were simply pulling my attention into different directions. Okay, lesson number 1. So any creative coach would tell you it is super important to have diverse sources for inspiration, to keep our brains engaged, because we thrive off novelty. And yes, I would agree with that. But what really helped me is becoming more clear on what I want to achieve before I start. So what problem do I try to solve? So writing it down, discussing it, helped me to be more specific about what I would like to learn. Once I did that, it helped me to gravitate towards the inspirational inputs about the actual problem that I was trying to solve. I didn't just let information related to other topics pull me off my tracks. And yes, that did mean being picky with my sources of inspiration. But sometimes less really is more. The second mistake that I made was letting inputs disrupt me in what I was doing right that moment, just because it might be inspirational. This is still something that I work on today. Usually, when I come across about something that really sparks my interest, I feel so excited that I stop whatever I'm doing right then and look at it right there and then. But this consuming it right there and then really is a slippery slope. Inspiration is not a ready-made product that we can consume. I think more of it as an ingredient. So instead, I find a place to stash my inspirational inputs. I make a pantry out of it. I personally use Feedly to accumulate articles and blog posts, but there are similar other aggregator applications out there as well. And I also use Evernote to save content that I come across and I want to come back to at a later point. But the important thing is that I can come back to that place in my own time. And when I do, there will already be a few inputs on that topic accumulated, and I will give it my full attention. And I'll give those different ideas a chance to network amongst each other. This leads me to my last point, letting ideas connect. It is so important to make time for ideas to network amongst themselves. I think it is of it as pulling out all the ingredients on a table. So I can look at it and see what I can cook with it. So let me give you an example. Working on my startup, the most inspired I've probably ever felt was after a 3-day bootcamp. There were a few things really great about it. Firstly, it was time boxed. It was these 3 days, super intensive, but really focused and really great energy as well. Secondly, it was dedicated to one particular challenge that we were working on. There were a lot of talks and inputs, but we picked them to suit our challenge. So it was laser focused on what we were working on. And lastly, after each session, we were made to take time in solitude to reflect, to go out for a walk. And then when we came back to discuss it within our teams on how it applies to us. I think we are in danger of treating inspiration as something we can simply consume, as if it were a product, and we're forgetting the role our psyche plays in making sense of it in our own context. So rather than endlessly scrolling and sharing articles, I'm trying now to build in time and space after watching, listening, or reading something particularly inspiring, so I can more deeply embed it. So these are the things that still help me today on my path to healthier inspiration. And I do hope that you might find some inspiration in these too. So thinking back to the time I sat in the car, it was one of those events where I felt more overwhelmed than empowered afterwards. So I would like to ask you, how much of today's day are you going to take with you? What is going to inspire you? Maybe you find that writing down 3 things, or even just one idea that compelled to you, will help you not just jumping from one talk to the next, and taking some time for reflection. How do the different ideas connect? Is there something that you can make out of these new ingredients that you've collected? And who knows, maybe it will also help you to better harness this really amazing power of inspiration in the end. So if you have any more ideas, inputs, or experiences, I'm very eager to connect with you in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elina. That was very inspiring. I can totally relate to it as someone with tons of favorite articles saved on the browser that I'll probably never open. And yeah, spending time with speed reading to get it faster through it. But I guess that's not the way to go. But I have a few questions here from Marta. How does it apply to the projects at Tutti?
Yes, I think the way we are treating inspiration and managing our inspirational inputs is you can really apply to any context. So for working at Tutti, whenever there is a challenge that I come across, there is a temptation to just go out there and get as much input as possible. But yeah, from what I've learned, it is not necessarily the thing that is going to help me solve the problem in the end.
Okay. Still Marta with another question. Are you apply the concept of managing inspiration to both work and personal life?
Absolutely. I've started I'm a person, I'm a very curious person just by nature. So things spark my interest quite easily. So I needed to come up with a way of still tapping into that and embracing that curiosity, but without sort of letting it pull me into different directions. So in a personal life, I started simply with writing a list of the things that right now in this moment, what are the things that really interest me? What are the things I want to learn about? And so I would say it definitely applies to personal as well as professional life.
I would totally agree there. Okay, we can have time for one more question. So from Anna, do you have any strategies, personal or professional, to give reflection time enough priority in a busy schedule?
Yes. I wish I could give you the ended formula. What I think the biggest thing that really helps me is being super conscious about it, because for me it's so easy to just go on to the next thing, especially when then there's something, maybe a notification, maybe a message, maybe another topic or a deadline that's coming in. It's easy to push that reflection side to the side, because you're like, oh well, I've had my input now, it's not the most important thing. But actually really protecting that time, and sometimes it doesn't have to be super long, but knowing that it will help you, setting some time aside to actually then come up with ideas, is motivation for me to do it.
Interesting. I have a question actually myself.
Yeah.
I've seen myself in that rabbit hole quite a few times in life. And do you have any experience if meditation might support you there? That's something that I've done, and it's absolutely wonderful because one thing is you say, look, I'm gonna say no to a lot of things. The other thing is actually saying no to a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm. Very true. I have experience with using some of those mindfulness meditations, which I've done more regularly in the past than I do right now. And what I guess, like the lessons we can take from these mindfulness meditations is the sitting still, not looking for the next input, but just sitting still and observing how ideas and thoughts are coming and that they're going. And I think there's a really amazing body of research as well supporting the idea. It's helping to produce to boost effectiveness and productivity.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I am not at the point where I am right now, where I'd like to be. I've definitely been slacking on my meditation habits, so actually it's a really good tip.
Well, it's a COVID times. You're gonna get there, like everybody else. Okay, we are on time. Thank you very much. That was absolutely inspiring. I definitely gonna watch the recording of this video later on.
Thank you very much, Lucas.